We would like to answer your questions now. I'll invite Dr. Jones, Dr. Griffin, and Eric Lawyer to come up, and we'll try to answer your questions.
I have a quick question about the signature, probably for anyone who'd like to answer it, especially Professor Jones. The signature that you put up of the nanothermite, it was even more explosive than a sample of presumably military-grade thermate that you put with it. That signature is the fingerprint, literally, of a mass murderer. What can you tell us about what you already know about the possible source of that explosive thermitic material? Thank you.
Let me attempt an answer. Well, as scientists, we can determine that this material is active thermitic material, highly reactive. It certainly matches what we find in the literature. As you mentioned, these are defense contractors who produce this nanothermite, and or super thermite. It's the same thing. In the days leading up to 2001, 9/11/2001, there were not many places that we can find that had the capability to make this nanothermite. We know the defense contracting laboratories had this capability. You realize that there's large quantities of this in the dust when you extrapolate to the tens of thousands of tons of dust that was produced. There are, and again, we estimate from what we see in the dust samples, approximately, and this is rough, but approximately 3 tons of unexploded nanothermite in the dust. So who has the, and there must have been more than that produced. Oh yes, thank you, Richard. Here's a sample of the dust. This Jeanette McKinley?
No, that came off the high-rise.
Oh, this high-rise, okay. So we're getting a number of these samples of the World Trade Center dust. Don't breathe it. I hope it's double bagged. Probably is. Okay, so I'm very careful when I work with that stuff now. So the point, yes, the point of the source. Let me just say that to really pin that down, we will need the type of investigation that Richard and the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth are calling for, which is a criminal investigation. Science can tell you so much. Now, I will mention too, Kevin Ryan, my good friend, has shown that a number of the authors of the NIST report on the World Trade Center, in fact, are experts in nanothermite. So your question really should be directed to them, and I'll leave it at that.
I want to know why no attention has been given to what happened to the Pentagon building.
We have a great deal of controversy as to what did or didn't happen at the Pentagon. And what we all know and what we all agree on is that there's plenty of evidence available to us if the Pentagon would release the dozens of cameras that they have that showed what did or didn't hit it. So clearly we're all agreeing that we have some sort of cover-up, and that there is plenty of evidence for that.
Richard, could you go over the timeline for the grand jury investigation?
We don't have those details together. We're raising funds to hire attorneys to do exactly that, and we're asking for your support at AE911Truth.org. There is a chip-in. You can click right there and support this effort if you believe what we're doing. So I appreciate your detailed question, and I don't have a detailed answer for you at this time.
David, I read your book, 9/11 Commission, Omissions and Distortions. I'm wondering what new omissions and distortions you have discovered since that book was published. Thank you.
Good question. If I were writing that book today, it would be at least twice as long. So, you know, I had quite a few. I had 115. But we would be way up over 200 now. I won't try to go into them now. I have thought about trying to put out a second edition, but you know there are so many things to do. It hasn't risen to the top of the priority list yet. But the more important thing now is the set of emissions of the NIST report. And these are even more important than those of the 9/11 Commission. So I think that's the place to focus our attention now.
Regarding the unexploded thermite particles, is anyone looking at the health effects of what could have occurred to the cleanup workers that were unmasked at Ground Zero who might have been breathing these in?
The question has to do with the health effects of breathing these nanothermitic materials into the lungs. I don't know, that's beyond my expertise as a physicist. You're talking about the health effects. It has been discussed, but I don't know of anyone who's looked into it. Certainly the dust itself was very hazardous because it was highly alkaline. That was noticed early on. Denied, incidentally, by the EPA and their official press releases in the days following 9/11. Even though scientists were saying the dust was dangerous, EPA was changing that, and we found out from the Nikki Tinsley, the EPA investigator, that in fact the White House had reviewed the EPA statements. The EPA initially was cautioning people about the dust. The White House changed that to reassurances. Most unfortunately, now there are thousands, approaching, I understand, 15,000 people who inhaled this dust and in effect swallowed the lies of the government. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. And certainly these people need more than just our sympathy. They need our help. This dust was very hazardous. I understand that some of the health benefits have been denied these people recently and continue to be denied. And Eric will speak to that.
Yeah, there's a group called the Feel Good Foundation that's helping take care of the sick and dying from their exposures. We're getting to the point now where we're going to surpass the number that were actually killed that day, and both civilians and firefighters that are going to die from it. So as far as the particles, no, I don't think there's been any study on those individually, but there are so many toxic gases. You know, we called it the toxic soup there, and we've seen so many firefighters already dying from it. And I think it's about 40,000, they say, that were exposed, and 40% of them already have lung problems from it. So it's definitely an issue, and I'm sure having that type of chemical and you're breathing that in just like the asbestos, we're not going to see the effects, the full effects, for a few more years, and then we're going to see just massive numbers of people dying. So.
One more footnote. With regard to the asbestos, a story had appeared in the Boston Globe 2 days before FEMA was ordered by the White House to put out its report saying the air is safe to breathe. The story in the Boston Globe had made very clear the air was not safe to breathe. This was deliberate murder. The important thing is the professionalization of the movement. We now have a dozen professional organizations with these thousands of members. So the leadership has changed from the early days. And that's the important thing, and that's the important thing that is being signaled by this press conference today. And this can call attention to all the other professional organizations, more of which are forming as we speak.
For Mr. Lawyer in particular, I wanted to know, what's the general feeling among firefighters today? You mentioned 343 of your brothers are calling out for justice. And is there a sense of anger and bitterness? I wonder if that might be the beginning of a wider investigation.
That's what we're hoping for. A lot of the senior military intelligence guys that I've spoken with think the firefighters are kind of the key to waking up the average person because they lost so much. I think Dr. Griffin could probably speak about this better. I think it's, I like to joke, my minor in college was sociology and psychology. there's something going on in the fire service, just like the rest of the country, but especially in New York, because I don't think there's a cover-up. I don't think there was a gag order. I've talked to so many of those guys. I don't think there's a gag order. I think what it is the people that were hurt the most from this have the most to lose when they realize what really happened. And there's just there's like an emotional barrier there. They can't look at it. So as far as firefighters, we're just like the rest of the population. We're divided, and it's very emotional for the ones who really don't want to believe it. They get angry with me. I'll get, hate mail. I'll get all kinds of things. But then there's 10 times as many behind the scenes that are supporting us that are seeing it. And I think it is changing. There's some chief officers and stuff that have now come out publicly supporting us that, are saying they didn't see this either. It took me years to see it, and I think what it is the emotion needs to die down, and then people can relax about it, look at the evidence objectively, and I think as a nation, I'm seeing the big snowball happening now. I think it's all of us together. It's not any one of us, but so.
One important thing that's happening and a possible sign of change in the media is to show Rescue Me, which has been dealing with this issue. So if you're not aware of it, it's an important thing, maybe an indication that things are changing.
Rescue Me is the hit television program with Daniel Sunjata leading star in it. He's in New York, and today he gave a press conference, an AE911Truth press conference, one of 32 happening across the country. Okay, Dr. Jones and Dr. Griffin, Eric Lawyer, and myself are available for 2-minute interviews. Abby, come on up. If you'd like to have an interview with any of us, please sign up. Thanks to the Marines Club Memorial Hotel. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.